Hi, my name is Lori, and today I'll talk to you about hyperreality and why I think the Catholic Church is the Antichrist. Okay, so what's hyperreality? Hyperreality is a concept that was first brought up by Umberto Eco, and for Umberto Eco, hyperreality is the staging of reality. He wrote a series of essays about the US and American culture that were published in some newspaper, maybe the New York Times, maybe something else, maybe in Italy, where he's from. What I do know is those essays were collected in a book called Travels to Hyperreality, which I highly recommend. It's one of my favorite books ever. So in Travels to Hyperreality, he talks about phenomena like Las Vegas and drag queens and like the staging of reality, right? Like drag queens are hyper feminine, and how Las Vegas is, you have Egypt and a whole set that is a hotel that is Egypt, and you have a whole set that is a hotel that is like Paris and that kind of thing. And the phrase that encapsulates it is even better than the real thing. Of course, this is a European in the Americas, and for Europeans, the Americas are unreal, because in Europe, a tiny river this wide that is only like in existence in the summer and spring is in the map, and for us, a river driven because a river has to be enormous, and so to them, our big trees and our big everything, not just in the US, but from Canada to Argentina and Chile, it seems unreal. Our big trees, our big mountains, our big, bounty. But it's not unreal. It's real. It's just, a dreamy land. And actually, Europe is hyper real, because let's back down for a second. So for Umberto Eco, hyperreality is this thing that he does throughout these essays, and then a year later, Jean-Paul Baudrillard takes it and talks about the simulacra, and says like everybody's living everywhere in a simulacra, and like reality doesn't exist anymore, which of course that's Europe's reality. They keep talking about things that haven't been around for 500 years, and that's their reality, but that's not the whole world. But for Europe is the whole world, but the world is the world. Anyway, so I guess I also take hyperreality, and to me hyperreality is a layer of what we call reality as a whole. And what is hyperreality? Hyperreality is the staging of reality. It's the narrative that we make out of facts. It's the meaning of things that we agree upon and we act upon. I have this layered reality theory, and in it you have intra-reality, which is your own inner world and your own inner perception, and that connects with my fairy tale, which is my unifying physics and science theory. But we can talk about that part of my philosophy in some other video. So we have hyperreality, and then we have consensus, which is the agreements we make, the things we all agree that are real. And that's language and law and social rules, and some are established and some are understood. But they're all there, and that's how we connect. And so consensus is language, but consensus is also a road. Does that make sense? And then we have hyperreality. Hyperreality is the meaning of things. So consensus would be 9/11. There was plane crashes on the Twin Towers. That's consensus. That's fact. We all agree on that. Hyperreality would be the meaning of that act. Is that a terrorist act? Is the beginning of a war? Is an act of the government to destabilize or start a war? I actually choose something that we don't all agree on the meaning of, so you can understand what the difference between consensus and hyperreality is. Because if it was something that we all agree on the meaning, you wouldn't be able to detach from it. But when I'm telling you several meanings and you will connect with some and not with others, you will understand how the thing is the thing and the meaning is the meaning. So the thing is the planes crashing on the Twin Towers. The meaning is the narrative we put on that. And even who did it and for what is a narrative we don't agree on. We have facts, we have names, but we don't agree who the actors were and what the motive was. We really don't. So that would be hyperreality. And then ultra reality is the domain of avant artists and avant scientists and visionaries and crazy people and conspiracy theorists. You know, the out there stuff is ultra reality. Is a lot of stuff that today seems out there and might be consensus or hyperreality in 10 or 20 years. And then we have possible reality, and possible reality is all of those together plus one step into the unknown, which is the adjacent possible. And then we have the great beyond. And the great beyond, or the nonsense, is the stuff that we cannot even come up with, that we cannot even perceive or conceive. I hope I didn't forget anything because this is not scripted. So, hyperreality, think of hyperreality as iconic and ultra reality as genius. So, Tina Turner, Michael Jackson are iconic. Medeski, Martin and Wood, Ima Sumac are genius. In their time, Salieri was iconic and Mozart was ultra real, genius. The genius in its time is often invisible. Nietzsche only sold a couple hundred books in his time, but he shaped thought for all of us. And Copernicus, the same, just a few copies of the Revolutionibus in existence and completely changed the world. So it's not always about rich, it's about impact. So let's go back to hyperreality. So there's a lot to say about this, about art and about human cooperation, and how those are the two things that make a homo human. Anthropologists don't necessarily agree on what makes us human. We used to think it was tools, but beavers have tools, a lot of animals have tools. We don't agree on that anymore. For a while we haven't. So is it art or is it cooperation? Is it a healed femur or is it a cave painting? I think it's both. I think what makes us human is art or wasteful creation, and cooperation, which is also wasteful in terms of systems. Of course, both art and cooperation end up being, leap factors in terms of efficiency and in terms of creativity. But in the moment that they happen, they are wasteful. And so out of art and cooperation comes religion. And religion is hyperreality. Because what is hyperreality, or what is religion, is the noticing that we are not one, but that we are separate. And cooperation comes in there. And trying to bridge that gap, even though it's impossible. Like, we'll always be separate, but we still try to be one. And we still try to communicate, even though we all have different perception and different understanding, per se, biologically. Like, we are all a set of different censors. And so, to reach that bridge, to reach that gap, we make a staging of reality that we call religion, where we set up our goals and our understandings and our values and our visions. So let's say we want to hunt a bison, and so we dance the hunt, and we narrate the hunt, and we draw the hunt, and we sing the hunt, and each person is going to understand one of those things, and that's mass, and that's right, and that's hyperreality, right? And so that starts with the being human. This is the beginning of sapiens. And since the beginning, we have the chief and the shaman. The chief, they both take care of hyperreality, but the chief is more in charge of consensus and material and strategy, right? Next steps. And the shaman is more in charge of foresight and vision and the map of things and what things are, and things like healing and symbols and what we stand for. And the shaman is the priest, right? And so in most traditions, in most civilizations, we have these two figures, and leadership is divided like this. And we have that in early Greece, and then we have that in the Roman Empire, and then at some point Constantine wants to unify or reunify the power in the Roman Empire, and it kind of makes an alliance with the church. You can look for other readings on Constantine and stuff, but it's pretty clear he never actually became Roman Catholic. He was a catechist, like he was in the learning, and he did some other baptism, maybe, it's not clear, but he really wanted to unify power in the Roman Empire. And Catholicism was an organized movement that was, like generating structure as the Roman Empire was losing it. And the Roman Empire had been divided, and there were basically 4 emperors. And Constantine was like, fuck that. I don't want to share this. I want to be the one. And so to do that, he forms an alliance with the Catholic Church, and being, the person he was wanting all the power, he divides the Catholic Church between Constantinople and Rome. Now, Rome was in decadence and Constantinople was bustling, and he moved the capital of the Roman Empire to Constantinople. But like, Rome was already hyper-real, which ended up giving the Pope a lot of power, but Rome was also in decadence, which ended up giving the Pope a lot of problems. And both of those things are gonna make the Pope like a very strong figure for the world. Now, in Constantinople, we have the Patriarch, but patriarchs for the longest time were under the emperor and under the finger of the emperor, and with a lot of comfort and safety, but very little power. And so from that moment on, the number one goal of the Catholic Church is sustain stability and structure and grow power. And to do that, every few centuries, it does very specific things to impede the surgence of a new innovative movement, and really the surgence of a new Jesus, which is a new philosopher. We had Socrates, who changed the world, and then we had Jesus. In Jesus' times, there were many figures like Jesus, but he had kind of like a team that made his message the most powerful message. And this is a great moment to say, I am Catholic, I'm baptized Catholic. I was educated in a Catholic school, and my kids are Catholic for my choice. And it was actually a hard choice, because here in the United States, it's not just easy to baptize your kids into Catholicism, but we had it done. So it's not like, oh, I'm against the Catholic Church. I don't have a bone to pick, and this is more analytical and about knowledge than about spirituality. So throughout history, the church subverts the gospel and rewrites it, picks and chooses what to add and what to not. Mary Magdalene as a prostitute, and narrative being told over and over, and her story being modified. In reality, Mary Magdalene was a disciple, maybe an apostle, and she was a wealthy woman who was a patron of Jesus. And when all the men were hiding during the crucifixion because it was dangerous to be there, she was at the foot of the cross to witness and to provide comfort when all the men were hiding. And she's the one who discovers, that Jesus rose. And why? Because she went to this place that was forbidden, the tombs, the cemetery, because she was fucking brave, because she wasn't a prostitute and like a background figure. She was an active pupil, and some writings say the smartest and the most faithful. And she supported Jesus with her money and her time. And when you are wealthy and powerful, that matters. She put her neck out there. She wasn't just nobody. She was somebody who could be targeted and who had something to lose. And she still did it during Jesus' life and after his death. But in every innovation wave, all throughout history, everywhere in the world, women are key. The collaboration of men and women are key. Why? There's no great man without great woman. And every innovative wave has a rise of women voices. They go together. And many great minds are raised and educated by women, like Socrates. Socrates learned a lot of his own philosophy from two women, whose names I can't remember. I'll write it down in the description. And that tells you something, because their names should be remembered. And I really care, and I forget. So imagine the people who don't care, or the people who want to forget. But they are real. It's documented. It's something Plato states. So that's one of the things the Catholic Church does. It erases women and takes power away from women. And with with the alliance with Constantine, in the Gregorian Reform, which I take it from 1050 to 1250, because even though the Gregorian Reform is a shorter period, like those 200 years are like a complete restructuring of the church, and a lot of things happen. The Crusades, like just a lot of things happen that go towards the same kind of clear goals of creating more structure, of kind of like making things more stable, but also like less change and less innovation and less diverse voices. A narrative from around this time is that the first university came up in Europe, but the first university came up in Fez, Morocco, and it was founded by a woman. The first university is in Fez. I can't pronounce the name, and I can't pronounce her name, and I write it in the comments again, and I should be able to. A lot of people don't consider it the first university because it comes next to a madrasa. They say it's a madrasa, and it's like part of a temple, like an Islamic temple, and a mosque. And the reality is like all European universities, or most of them, start in a cathedral or in a church. The one that they take as the first university is Bologna, and the date is kind of made up. It's a convention that literally 3 guys came up with the year that it was supposedly created. And it starts kind of like a study group. And then all the other first European universities start as a cathedral school, like the University of Paris and the University of Salamanca. And if from the European universities, the one that starts first is Salamanca, but it's in Spain, and it's close to Morocco anyway. And to European, Spain is sort of European, but not really that much European, so forget about that. But really, Salamanca is the first, and and it was famous. But you don't want the first European university to be Hispanic, and you don't want it to be like a rock's throw away from Fez and from Al-Andalus. And let's get to Al-Andalus. What's Al-Andalus? Al-Andalus was most of the Iberian Peninsula, and that it was taken over by a caliphate, by the Islamic world. In Al-Andalus happens the Islamic Golden Age. What's the Islamic Golden Age? It's like this period of like extreme technological and scientific and philosophical advancement for the whole world, for Europe, but for the whole world. Thanks to Al-Andalus and to Baghdad and Cairo, we have the works of Aristotle, We have just access to so much wisdom and thought that would have been lost without the work of Al-Andalus. Al-Andalus was under the power of Islam, but there was a peaceful convivencia, peaceful living between Muslim, Jewish, and Catholic. Now, the Jewish and Catholic had to pay a little extra tax, and they have specific rules, but they loved there. Jewish people call Al-Andalus Sepharad, and that's where Sephardic Jewish comes from. And if you read a few books, you find, like Sepharad wasn't like an option to Jerusalem. Sepharad was like the home of these people. They loved it and thrived there. And they had a meaningful place in society. And they were safe and recognized. And they could study and they could keep their own language and their own culture without fear. So thanks to Al-Andalus, we have the printing press, because Al-Andalus gives us paper, and maybe also the knowledge of the printing press, because the printing press actually started in China with porcelain types, and so Gutenberg makes it metallic. But maybe, but Al-Andalus gives us a lot of knowledge from all around the world, from China, from Persia, from Egypt. It all whirlpools in Al-Andalus and gives us like a flourishing of innovation and ideas, and something akin to what we see as AI today, which was translation. The translation of a bunch of works into Latin and other languages. So you have the transcription and translation of a bunch of works that would have been lost. And that kind of changes things. And that, give us the need for universities, because like universities were happening, whether the church wanted it or not. So the church decided to do like their own version, kind of to co-opt university, which is something, it does systematically with other things. When as in like taking over a temple and turning it into a church. And so it acquires the hyper-real meaning of that temple. People keep going because it was like, let's say, the moon temple. But now they're going to church. But part of them still going to the moon temple, but it doesn't matter because now it's the church and they're going to go to Catholic Mass. And so every time a little kind of like movement of strong voices comes up, like in the 1800s, 2000, the church says like, we have to tighten the reins, and we have like the different orders, right? Like the Benedictines and Franciscans and whatever. All these orders start with a charismatic leader who has a different voice on what Catholicism should be, and the church kind of like silences most of those voices and chooses some to co-opt. And so people still have a way to see themselves in the church, even through diversity, but it's controlled by the church. And so you feel understood and you feel like you have space, but in reality you're still in the same place. It's kind of like a boy band, right? You have the bad boy, the good boy, the sporty boy, the nerdy boy, and it seems like it gives you diversity, but it's still the same boy band. Or the Spice Girls, right? You have like Baby Spice and Posh Spice, and they're all different, but it's the same girl band, but the result of that diversity of the different team members is that, completely different people go see them. People who like rock, people who like pop, people who are attracted to different things are attracted to the band because they're invested on a member. And that's what the Catholic Church does. It's like, okay, so you want to go and see somebody who cares about nature and stuff. We're going to grab Francis d'Assisi and you're going to listen to that, but within the narrative of the church, not over there. One of these narratives that comes at this time is the narrative of asceticism. And it was kind of like these hermits, wise men that were against a lot of the church excesses and stuff. And they were super dirty and into poverty and into eating little and being away from society. And the church co-opts that, and it co-opts part of that narrative. It makes it theirs, and it starts in this period of 1050 to 1250. And all of a sudden, we have a dirty society, an anti-hygienic society. And, and that's part of the church being the Antichrist. It's all these specific systematic actions that in the end are anti-humanity and keeps us down and keep the search of innovation and change down in the seek of stability and structure. And we do need some stability and some structure, but we also do need change and innovation, because I think that's the biological call of humanity. Because if the biological call of humanity is just reproduction, then we are cancer to the world. But if the biological call for humanity is culture, and what I think is, okay, so here's my crazy idea. Are you ready? I think we are the spores of Gaia, the spores of Earth. And so we're sexual organs. So every man is a penis and every woman is a cunt. Every man's a dick, every woman's a cunt. And our biological call is to reach the stars and to terraform planets. And I think that's what we exist for, and that's what we are supposed to do. And I mean, why, we think we are artificial, but if an alien came to Earth, they would see our cities as nature, as our nature. So we are nature and we are of nature, but we are divorced from our meaning and we are divorced from our calling. Something all civilizations have in common is looking up to the stars. And the stars don't feed us. The stars give us nothing. Maybe guide us, give us, let's say, help in locating things and maps and whatever, but it's not a lot. And we can locate ourselves in Earth without the stars. So why are all civilizations obsessed with the stars? I think because we're supposed to reach them. I think we're supposed to raise our head from dirt up to the sky to see the stars and, reach for them. First, as a gesture, and then in a spaceship. And I think the Catholic Church makes us subconsciously scared of technology and technological advancement. And again, Christ puts forth a new technology. Scripture is philosophy and wisdom, and you don't have to be Catholic or Christian to see the value, and it's a new technology. How else is the church the Antichrist? The church imposes the other. The church brings upon binary thinking, this against that. But that's, Jesus says, love your enemy. Jesus says, love your neighbor. Because there is no enemy, there is no neighbor, there's just you. Jesus says, pay your taxes, give the government what's the government's, give God what's God. Stop fighting things, build things. That's Jesus' message. Love each other, build things. Fight nothing. Fighting is a waste of time. Build things. And so the church creates this message of other and instills fear on us. And Lucifer, who starts as God's, instrument, he's supposed to be, a lawyer of sorts. He's supposed to, like the famous devil's advocate image. Well, that's the devil. The devil is the devil's advocate. It's like saying, well, but are you being good enough? Are you doing everything you can do? That's the original meaning. And the third church turns it into an adversary, an enemy, which does two things. It keeps you fighting against something, and it makes you less responsible for your own life and your own action. I did something wrong. It must be the devil. I ate extra cake. The devil tempted me. And in the later years, in the last maybe 20 years, there's been a change where the devil sent us like our own voice of doubt and fear and anxiety. And that's not the original meaning, but that's a return to something more positive, where like the devil's not like something in hell that's gonna doom you. The devil's you, and you can doom yourself, but it's you with you. And the real devil is the voice that says, are you doing everything you can do? Are you being everything you can be? Are you good? Are you just? Are you correct thinking this is unfair, or are you being unfair? And the church subverts that message. In the Antichrist is supposed to sit on the throne of Christ and subvert the message of Christ and subvert the message of the scripture to retain power, to stay in that throne, which is what the church do. And look, sometimes I think it was out of good, out of like maintaining stability and keeping Europe for a war. But other times was just surely to maintain power. And a lot of evil actions were taken. Actions of destroying knowledge, actions of creating fake documents, actions of changing texts, actions of subverting knowledge that could have saved lives and all of a sudden didn't. For example, there's Islamic texts about bathing that are, taken by the church for universities as the knowledge, as the truth. And the texts say things like, you shouldn't bathe after food, and so the message was you should never bathe. But there were like instructions. It was like, hey, maybe it's bad to bathe after this or that. And if you ask AI, if you go to the books, it's gonna be a lot of like, oh, it was the Black Death, and that's why we stopped being clean in Europe. But there's been pests all around the world, and civilizations didn't stop being clean. And it's not a European thing, because Vikings were very clean, like very, 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 very groomy and clean. And Germanic culture was very clean, and just cultures all around Europe were very clean, including the Roman Empire, which has its famous baths, until the Catholic Church makes it unholy and impure to clean. And that's not a crime without victims. Because until the 1880s, babies and moms died. There's this guy, Ignaz Semmelweis, who noticed that the clinic where doctors practiced deliveries had so many moms die on delivery versus the midwife clinic that had virtually no deaths. And the doctors were performing autopsies and going to the delivery room without cleaning. And he didn't understand. And then he got a clue, and he introduced hand cleaning and hand washing, and all the doctors were upset because it goes against academic knowledge at the time. And I'm not talking about the 1500s. I'm talking about 1860, 1820, like something like that, something in the 1800s. Washing your hands is a piece of technology that is important. We know it saves lives. Not washing your hands might have killed so many people since, the church, entronized uncleanliness. How do you say that? Being unclean until the 1880s. The introduction of hand washing is the single most important technological advancement for saving mothers and babies' lives. And we still neglect it. After COVID, doctors neglect it. Why? Why don't we have more technological advancements that are about cleaning? Why are we still doing it with water and soap like 2,000 years ago? That's not normal. And that's the Catholic Church. But that's also all of us. Every time we don't wash our hands, every time we walk the streets of San Francisco, one of the wealthiest cities in the whole United States, and we see them dirty, and we question nothing. And we question nothing. And we go to a store that sells a $300 pair of jeans on Valencia, and it's dirty as fuck. And we question nothing because it's hippie and natural and it's deadly. That's what it is. It's death. And I have kids, and I think they should walk in dirt, and they should be participant to germs. But that doesn't mean living in grime. And if you want to be humane to homeless people, well, maybe give them clean streets to lay on. And so yes, the Catholic Church does all these things. But we keep doing them. And so the Catholic Church is the Antichrist. But we can be too. Every time we shut down a voice, it's us. Every time we're scared of advancement, it's us. Every time we tell a woman who they should be, it's us. And that includes feminism. Because every branch of feminism has a very specific idea of what a woman is, or what a woman should be. What is a man? A man is a lawyer, is an accountant, is a Navy SEAL. A man is many things. But if you ask someone, they will tell you the one thing that women are. And the one thing that women get to be, whether it's like somebody that is a traditionalist or somebody that is a particular branch of feminism or a hippie or just a regular person, and they think their choice of being a woman or their idea of what a woman should be is what all women should be. And it happened to me. When I was a stay-at-home mom, all the moms that had a job looked down on me. And then when 2 years ago I started trying to find myself, all the moms that were stay-at-home moms judged me. So you never win, because there's always going to be somebody unhappy. And that puts all women down. Because we are raised to meet people's expectations. And the expectations are harsh. And they're diverse. And they're impossible to abide to all of them. So no, it's not like, oh, feminism. Because one of the big, arms of continuity of the church is institutional power. And especially centrally academia, university was managed by the church, and what is knowledge was managed by the church, and very tightly. And everything we think about what science should be comes from there. Like, for example, this idea that truth is one and physics should be one, and we cannot have theories that contradict each other even if both explain reality. And then you have engineering, right? And then you have the business world. In engineering and the business world, you don't give a shit. Stuff has to work. It doesn't matter that this 50-year-old dude, who everybody admires, thinks differently. The car has to roll. The ship has to fly. It's not up to somebody's opinion. And that's the reason why systems thinking and systems theory arise and evolve for decades in the marketplace, in the private sector, before academia slowly started taking it as a fringe thing. It explains a bunch of stuff. Physics today is at a standstill. Nobody can do novel research because nobody can deny what came before. So nobody can try something new. Why? Because we treat science as a religion where there's like a monolithic truth. It shouldn't have to be like that. It wasn't like that for philosophy. And going to philosophy, which was all the science together, we have the separation of the sciences, the siloing of knowledge that makes everybody dumb. And nobody can do, or they're quite barred to do interconnectedness, silo. I can't remember the expression right now, but somebody who does neuroscience is not supposed to also work on physics. It's just not done. But philosophy is all of it. And why do we separate it? Because of theology. The church decided that theology was the mother of all sciences. And that was supposed to be that. But theology contradicted a bunch of stuff. So you had to separate it. And the theory, Thomas of Aquinas, who, by the way, makes, Aristotle church-proof. So subverts Aristotle. He says, well, the human mind can never, ever understand. You don't understand what I'm writing? It's you're dumb. You need to accept that you're stupid. You're dumb and you're stupid, and that's why you don't understand. What? You say that what I'm saying doesn't make sense? No, you're wrong. You need to have faith. Faith. You have to believe everything I say. And the stuff you don't understand, you have to believe. You're stupid. And of course, reality happened, right? But before reality happened, a lot of people died, including Ignaz Semmelweis, the hand-washing guy. You know how he died? Out of sepsis. He went, I think he had maybe a psychotic break, but maybe he was just really angry because he kept seeing people dying, and he knew all doctors had to do was wash their hands, and they just didn't want to wash their hands. So if you see mom after mom after mom die, you're going insane too, because these are like real people dying, babies without their moms, or maybe babies dead too. And so he went crazy, because what normal people do is see people die and keep walking. But he couldn't keep walking. And so he was a fringe theorist, because he didn't believe in humorism. And because he believed that we needed hygiene. And he was brought into a mental institution, and he fought, and they hit him, and he got an infection, and he died within 2 weeks. And so we have the Semmelweis effect. It's like when somebody says something that is true and right, and everybody takes them as crazy, even when reality proves that they're correct. Still, hand washing at baby delivery is the biggest technological advance in history for saving human lives, for saving babies and moms. And it didn't happen until Louis Pasteur, around the 1880s, I think. I'm horrible with dates. But more than, a century later, we still fight against it. We still don't wash our hands. We still discuss about how to shower. Because only the dirty shower. You don't want to say you're dirty. We don't take it as a biological necessity. We take it as a moral judgment. And so we say people of color is dirty, and so people of color actually shower more and scrub more and maybe hurt their skin. Because you don't need a bunch of scrubbing. You just need to wash yourself. And so we are nasty, and we are rigid because we believe truth is one, and we fight each other because we believe in adversariality. And so all of those actions and all of those mandates make the Antichrist. And I think that systematically, for centuries, the Catholic Church has been the Antichrist. But I think anyone can be the Antichrist. When we do these things, when we think that because somebody appears different, or has a different culture, or a different color, that they're dirty, we are the Antichrist. When we believe we have enemies and adversaries, we are the Antichrist. When we believe that truth is one, and there's only one way of doing things, we are the Antichrist. When we put down women, we put down men, and we are the Antichrist. when we force cultures to assimilate without giving us the gift of their flavor, we are the Antichrist. We're not going to lose ourselves because we welcome others. Now, I also do believe that disgust and xenophobia have a biological need, because I do think we cannot just, like, the cultures have like a system to assimilate immigration, just like the body has a system to assimilate germs. But germs and disease are a vector for illness and death, but they're also a vector for evolution. Our DNA is shaped by the viruses, and our body is moved by the bacteria that were once our enemy. So this is not just history and sociology and anthropology. This is also biology. This is, and we're not allowed to think of it like that, because knowledge is supposed to be siloed. We're not supposed to be talking to one another. It's a sin. We're not supposed to be seeing these patterns. It's crazy. And so the Frankfurt School, which is there of Marxism, takes the discourse of the church and makes university even more the Antichrist. There's a book about authoritarian thinking that has a test, and it basically says that anyone who doesn't agree with the Frankfurt School is authoritarian. And of course that's fascist. And it's weird, right? Because it has like some things about anti-Semitism, but it has things about religious orthodoxy. And so, like, what about Orthodox Jews? Are those authoritarians or not? And if the Frankfurt School calls Orthodox Jews authoritarians, then is the Frankfurt School authoritarian by being anti-Semitic? I don't know, but it's good to ask. And the Frankfurt School and critical thinking have made people believe that critical thinking is criticizing, and that criticizing everyone is being smart, and criticizing everyone is easy, but building is hard, right? What does criticizing do? It kind of creates enemies, and it creates meaning very easily, but it's useless meaning. It's destructive meaning. And so feminism, it cages women. It still tries to put women in a different box, or trading one box for another one. Gender studies. We have charts of different genders, of different ways to be, and they're useful. Like, they force people in a new box. And we needed labels to fight for civil rights. But we don't need labels anymore. You don't need to call yourself anything. You can just be. You don't need to be tri-binary, queer, whatever. I don't know. Like, I hate labels. And a lot of people feel one way one day, and they feel another day 2 years later. Not because they're crazy, but because they change, and their understanding of who they are changes. And having to change labels makes that traumatic. And having to feed in somebody else's experience makes it traumatic. But in Greece, sexuality was fluid. And in many cultures it was. We don't need names for everything. It doesn't have to be that hard, but Marxism makes it hard. And Marxism kills people. Marxism is specifically pro-war, pro-fight, pro-killing. And it's anti-Catholic Church. But we become everything we fight. And Marxism becomes the Antichrist. And so you have like these philosophical movement that subconsciously take everything from the church, like all the worst tendencies. And you have academia that by design has been shaped by the church. And you put them together. And you have the place of knowledge and where technology and scientific advancement should come from becomes the place where knowledge goes to die, where plurality of opinions and voices goes to die, where everybody has to have one think and one thought. And if you don't, you're shut down. And I know that just saying this on a video, it might seem kind of out there, but everything that is noticed at first seems kind of out there. And I don't know, think about it. I'm writing about it anyways, and I'm gonna make sure there are videos about it. In the meantime, you can check what I'm writing as I'm writing it, because I'm working publicly and I'm updating the post live, so you can see all my process. The particular vlog, I have two vlogs, privy.com and toolkitforthesoul.com, and I'm writing this in Toolkit. Everything is theater. So check it out there and learn more about how hyperreality shapes our lives, and about how the Catholic Church is the Antichrist. But more importantly, learn about how you could be the Antichrist and how to avoid it. Because part of the change is us stopping from complaining about what the government's doing and about what the church has done, and started changing our own behavior. And this goes to libertarians too, because at the end of the day, libertarians want the government to be different. Pay your taxes, pay all of it, and then go in the world and build the change you want to see. But that's what I pay my taxes for. You want to be a hero? Be a hero. You want to be Superman, Batman? Be it. Pay the price. Pay the price to change the world. Pay your taxes and go out and clean the streets. Anyone can clean the streets. Anyone can start a school. You don't need money. You just need to start. Maybe people will see you scrubbing slowly and they will scrub next to you. Maybe people will see you talking to two people and they will sit to hear. You don't need the government to change. You can be the change you want to see. Pay your taxes and do the work. I know I should. I hope I entertained you in this hour of video. And my name's Lori. I'm a writer and philosopher, and I'm trying to change the world. And come and change it with me. Love you.